Hi guys. The difference between just sketching and thumbnails is that when I do thumbnails, I'm really doing them to, they could be sketches or they could be actual layouts for design. So I start typically by giving myself about a 3 by 4 inch box. The size of this also depends on the project I'm doing. So if I'm doing, say, a website, we know that websites are sort of more like this shape, right, on a monitor. So I would do a box more in that format. For this thumbnail that I'm doing right now, it's actually based on a stamp design that I'm doing for Canada Post. So stamps are relatively this size. I'm not going to work that size because my hands are too big and I could never draw the thumbnails, get enough information in there. So I typically make them sort of 4 inches by 4 inches or 3 by 4, just sort of define my lines. I keep it this size just so I can do lots of these because I could jump on the computer and work in Illustrator, but then really I can't move around in Illustrator as fast as I can just sketching things out. So this is a community stamp, and community stamp means that it's for kids, but I can't put kids in it. Otherwise, it's really difficult because they'll want every sort of color of kid in it, so that makes it problematic. So they say just don't put kids in it. One of the things that Canada Post does is with the sale of these stamps, they buy books for kids in different communities. So that's what I want to focus on in this version. So I'm sort of looking at doing some monsters that are just that are reading. So I'll just start. I'm going to keep these things very flat and graphic. And you sort of see as I do my lines, I keep them pretty light. Just because I know that I'm going to be drawing over top of them a lot. So I'll sort of just sort of just sketch in my lines a little bit. And I certainly I'm not worrying about having perfect lines because this is really to see if this idea could actually work as an illustration and a stamp. So I'm just sort of boxing in the information at this point. So I'm just drawing in some eyes, nice big smile and some teeth. Need to put some arms in there holding the book. So you can sort of see I am not worried about keeping this thing really tight and perfect. Just sort of trying to see how this space will actually get used. Well, the one thing about stamps is they're very small, so you really need to fill that space. So what I thought I would do is with this one, I'm going to have sort of a father monster reading a book to his son. So you sort of see I'm just putting some big horns on these guys. I'm trying to keep this very symmetrical so that it is very simple. So I'm going to have the little monster hanging on to his dad's horns. Just going to really simply put in these legs. And then once I sort of have this base, I go, okay, well, that's not bad. In graphic design, we work with type as well when we're doing thumbnails. So the type that has to go on here is Canada. So again, I'm not really making it perfect, but I know that I want to have it right on the book. So on this side, there will be a little maple leaf and the denomination of 10 cents, which is what they donate to the schools for every stamp. Then I might just go in and sort of go, okay, I'm going to give this guy striped horns, just draw in the book a little bit. So I might put in a background, so I'm going to have some stars and moons because I'm going to make the book kind of about rocket ships. So you're going to see stars and moons on the book as well. And then what I do, once I get to this point, I'll actually go in and just sort of darken in some of the most important lines. So the book is very important. Sort of the arms coming on here is very important. The outline of the big monster, important. And then I'll clean up some of the lines. So this horn really needs some definition. So at this point, what I'm doing is really just going in and starting to define lines a little bit more. And that's really as far as you have to go when you're doing thumbnails. So I'll just do the eyes a little bit, and then what I might do is just kind of darken in the background a little bit, just so you can see that there's a difference between the sky and the actual monster. A little bit more on the legs, a little bit of a line here, so we know that that's where he's sitting. And that's about it. So I might put in a little bit of tone on the side of the book, but as you can see, it's not super polished and it's not finished. But at least I can look at that and go, yes, I can now take that, scan it, or take a photograph of it and actually redraw it in Illustrator. So I'll tend to do, for a project like this, I might do sort of like 10 or 15 different ideas. So on the same page, I'll just start doing that and going, okay, on this one, for instance, I want to have a big close-up of one of the ideas I was thinking about was having a penguin that was flying, and the idea really is that penguins obviously can't fly, but what about if a penguin sort of had like a harness on it, and it had a series of balloons that was sort of carrying it. So as you can sort of see, I'm working with a lot of circles, not worrying too much about how accurate it is, but I'm really sort of just trying to drop in type, seeing what kind of composition it would have, and seeing if that would actually work for an idea. So just put in the thing, put in some eyes. You can sort of see this one is even rougher than this one. But again, I will go, once I have it to there, I might do it again, tighter this time, and really try and get the proportions and have it looking more like an actual penguin. So I'm going to put you on hold for 1 sec. Hi guys. So just to continue this on, I've now taken a photograph of my wonky looking penguin, and I've brought him into my artboard. So these are my sort of roughs for stamps that I'm working on. So this one I'm going to add up here. So this green area here that you see is the actual size of the stamp. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of relatively resize. So I'm going to scale down my image using the free transform tool in Illustrator, and I'm relatively going to get it close to about how large my stamp is. I'm going to send it to the back. And let's just set up a layer here for it. So I'm going to go under Window, Layers. My layer palette is there. It's just hidden somewhere. It's on my other monitor. There it is. So you can see I've already got a bunch of layers set up. So I'm going to go New Layer, Penguin Drawing. I'm going to go OK. I'm going to select my penguin. I'm going to drag it onto the penguin layer, and I'm going to pull that down to the bottom. So now you can sort of see it's gone in behind my green layer. I'm just going to click on the green layer. I'm going to hold them both together, and then I go Clipping Mask, Make. And they need to be on the same layer. So I'm just going to pull those together, make sure they're not grouped with anything. So you can sort of see what I did there. I'll just go back again. What I did was I selected this green box, which I know is the size of my stamp. Then I held the shift down and at the same time selected my image. And then under Object, I went Clipping Mask and Make. So basically it takes that front shape and it clips everything away from the actual that was left over there. And you can actually move it. So now I'll go in and I can grab the image of the penguin and start moving it around. So relatively now what I have is a rough drawing. And so I'm just going to lock my penguin drawing and I go new layer, penguin illustration. So I keep my penguin illustration just above my penguin drawing, which I've locked so it won't move around. And so the next step that I go into is I'm actually going to go in and start defining some of these shapes. So I'm really kind of going in and I'm tracing what I have, and it won't be exactly the same, but I'll basically start with our really basic shapes that we've talked about. So the first thing I have is an ellipse, and I'll just put a stroke on it so I can understand what it's going to look like. I know for the body of the penguin, it's going to be fairly oval, so I'm actually going to draw an oval like that, and then I'm going to go up to my rotate button, and I'm just going to rotate it relatively the same as the illustration. So that's already pretty close. So now I've got a head, and I could just go in, so I'm just going in and making them white. So I'm clicking on my body, I'm going to the eyedrop tool, and I'm just eyedropping the page, which will make it white. So that's relatively how I start going in and turning thumbnail sketches into illustrations. So, as an example, some of the things I'll have to do with the pen tool. So I'll just sort of go in and try and keep it as clean as possible. So, if I were to just eyedrop another color, you can sort of see now I have one of his arms, or wings, I guess we would call them, would be the better word. So that's about it. I'll be back in 1 second. So this is a few hours later, but you basically get the sense of what I've done here. I've created my illustration, I've put in my type, so somewhat similar to my original thumbnail. All of these are set up in layers. They're all different shapes, so you can sort of see how I work. Trying to use as many ellipses, circles, and keeping the shapes clean. I'm going in and putting in some shading. So this is a brush that I use, so you can sort of see as I move it, it's gonna move over a little bit. So I tend to use brushes in Illustrator quite a bit. So that's about it. You can sort of see where we started with my pencil sketch, to starting to trace it to finishing it. So this would be one of the comps that I would send to Canada Post and get their feedback, and then hopefully get a stamp commission, hopefully.